Tonight, the left is working overtime to try and destroy President Trump while ignoring a bombshell about the Clinton campaign. Patrick J. Buchanan is here tonight with reaction. And then...
But I'm not saying it didn't happen. I think there's a very good chance it does.
Senator Rand Paul says it's possible that the Obama administration spied on President Trump. Journalist Sarah Carter is here to weigh in.
Whether we do it or not, it'll be imploded off the map.
And President Trump moves ahead to repeal and replace Obamacare. Plus, Republican saboteurs continue to undermine the president's agenda. Monica Crowley, Geraldo Rivera, they have reaction. Hannity starts right here, right now. And welcome to Hannity, reporting from Washington tonight. So the alt-left propaganda destroyed Donald Trump media without any evidence whatsoever, continues to push this false Russian narrative. Why? To destroy the president. That's tonight's opening monologue. All right, so as we've been reporting since last week, serious journalists at Circuit News have now debunked the fake news narrative about a connection between President Trump and Russia. Now, it's one thing for the alt-left propaganda media to not vet Barack Obama. They didn't do that. They didn't look at his radical ties because they have his agenda. But what's happening now is a dereliction of duty that is now bordering on malice and malpractice by continuing to run wild with this Trump-Russia story that actual journalists are reporting is just not true. Now take a look at some of the worst examples from the propaganda press. Take a look.
We are, number one, nailing down more direct connections between the Trump campaign and the Russian government at the time the Russian government was influencing our election. And number two, at the same time, we are also starting to see what may be signs of continuing influence in our country, not just during the campaign, but during the administration. Basically signs of what could be a continuing operation.
Vladimir Putin over there in the Kremlin did everything he could to put guess who in the White House.
CNN has learned that the nation's top intelligence officials provided information to President-elect Donald Trump and to President Barack Obama last week about claims of Russian efforts to compromise President-elect Trump.
Did you know there's not a shred of evidence? Do these people have any intellectual honesty, any integrity at all? Not to mention sources have told Hannity, as well as Circuit News, as they have reported. Remember the FISA warrant they keep talking about, granted back in October? It had nothing to do with Donald Trump. And every time this issue of so-called Russian collusion came up, it was debunked by law enforcement. So when is the Destroy Trump media, are they ever going to apologize, admit they were completely wrong? And by the way, we can't forget about the media freaking out over people connected to the Trump campaign meeting with a Russian ambassador. Remember that? Well, it's political standard practice. In fact, over the weekend, shocker of all shocks, Russian spokesman actually said people tied to Hillary Clinton's campaign did the exact same thing during the campaign. Wow.
Did he have similar meetings with Clinton campaign officials? Because I don't know of any.
Well, if you look at some people connected with Hillary Clinton during her campaign, you would probably see that he had lots of meetings of that kind. But there were no meetings about electoral process.
So where's all the liberal outrage? Where are the calls for congressional investigations? Now, this is a perfect example of stunning hypocrisy from the left. Now, the dishonest media is also hysterical over President Trump asking 46 Obama-era U.S. attorneys to resign, even though several presidents, including former President Bill Clinton, have done the same thing, taken the same action. Instead of acknowledging this fact, the press is now saying that yours truly, that I am responsible for the president's decision. I'd love to take credit, but it wouldn't be true. Take a look.
This comes less than 24 hours after Fox News personality Sean Hannity, a friend of the president, said this.
Now, for weeks, we've been warning you about the deep state Obama holdover government bureaucrats who are hell-bent on destroying this president, President Trump. Tonight, it's time for the Trump administration to begin to purge these saboteurs before it's too late.
So, coincidence, you think, or is this another example of the president having a knee-jerk reaction to a right-wing news story?
Sessions' decision to clean house comes one day after Trump loyalist Sean Hannity called for a purge.
I got to laugh because I was talking about deep state Obama holdovers. I don't think I mentioned U.S. attorneys once, but I am glad those of you in the liberal media are watching because maybe you'll finally learn something for once. And by the way, I'd love to take credit that our monologue influenced the president. Here's a simple truth. You know what? During the campaign, I once suggested to the president, maybe he wants to stop tweeting. He didn't listen then. He makes up his own mind. Now, members of the propaganda media weren't so lazy and closed-minded and dishonest, they would know that President Trump is his own man. He makes his own decisions. And if they actually cared about the truth, they would tell you that all the way going back to Lincoln, presidents have fired and replaced government officials. Now, it's not new. In fact, in 1993, Bill Clinton, in fact, fired all 93 U.S. attorneys. Barack Obama replaced Bush-era attorneys. And take a look at former Attorney General Eric Holder defending the decision way back to Congress in 2009. Take a look.
We are working as quickly as we can to put new U.S. attorneys in place. I expect that we'll have an announcement in the next couple of weeks with regard to our first batch of U.S. attorneys. One of the things that we didn't want to do was to disrupt the continuity of the offices and pull people out of positions where we thought there might be a danger that might have on the continuity, the effectiveness of the offices. But it is our intention, elections matter, it is our intention to have the U.S. attorneys that are selected by President Obama in place as quickly as we can.
Just like Holder said, elections matter, and President Trump has the right to put his people in place. But the alt-left, propaganda, destroy Trump media, well, they're not going to tell you that, because they're the ones who are in the tank for Obama. They're the ones that colluded with Hillary Clinton in her campaign and who are now openly lying to you night after night, you, the American people, about who President Trump is and what he's trying to accomplish. Here with reaction, the author of The Greatest Comeback, Patrick J. Buchanan, joins us, sir. You didn't know I was that powerful, did you?
Good to see you, Sean, and congratulations.
Yeah, you're going to give me the credit,
46.
too? 46 in one shot. Not bad, right? You know, it's funny. I've actually watched the president in action. He'll take consensus in a room, and he makes up his own mind. You've been around presidents like that.
Well, I think, look, you're a friend of his, and you're a supporter, and I think you did the right thing. Look, let me tell you a story.
But I didn't tell him to do that.
1992, the morning after Nixon won 49 states, we were called into the Roosevelt room, and he said, Haldeman said, everybody turn in your resignations. And the president will pick up the ones he wants to accept, and the ones he wants to keep, he'll talk to you. I mean, that's what you do, and I think it's what the president should have done when he comes in. Said, look, everybody pro forma, write a letter of resignation today. Some of you may need to keep you on to finish up your work, but all the jobs, I mean, you've resigned and you're gone.
Let's talk about this deep state. There are still a lot of holdovers, and look, I have great respect for intelligence. It's something that's necessary in a world as evil as this. I believe that we're being spied on. We've got to spy on them. We've got to know our enemy better than they know us. But when you have our intelligence community using classified information and leaking it selectively, it hurts the president, it hurts the country.
You know, as Hamlet said, there is something rotten in the state here, Sean. Look, General Clapper, DNI, the head of Director of National Intelligence, said, I believe, January 20th, we have found, after 6 months, I guess it was, no evidence of any collusion whatsoever between the Trump campaign and the Russians and all these leaks. And yet we get story after story saying intelligence sources say. I mean, these intelligence, either the journalists are lying, which I don't believe, I think they've got the sources, or the sources are breaking their oath and breaking the law by leaking out falsehoods or things they don't know to damage the President of the United States, and it's being done within the government of the United States.
Sarah Carter and John Solomon, AP, right. 20 years. These are seasoned, real journalists. They're not opinion people like I am, but they are reporting that, yeah, there was a FISA warrant in October, probably having to do with the larger Russia connection, but not with Trump. And they go further. Anytime the Trump campaign issue came up, it was investigated and debunked.
All right, but yet, you got 8 months this thing has been going on. Why has there not been, look, 8 months into Watergate, we had 7 guys indicted, convicted, prosecuted, the rest of it, and sentenced. They were gone. You got 8 months in, not a single indictment. If there's somebody that did something wrong in the Trump campaign and did something illegal, which I don't believe, and which Clapper said they didn't find, then indict him or shut up. I mean, these individuals keep going out and saying the same thing again and again and again without any evidence whatsoever.
How does NBC even call themselves a news organization when the conspiracy without any proof, evidence, and look, I'm open to seeing it. I'm waiting forever. I haven't seen it.
They got these ombudsmen in journalism. Why don't one of them come up and say, look, do you have any real evidence of this? Because Clapper says he runs the whole intelligence agency. and he didn't see it.
What about how critical is it for President Trump, as I talk about deep state and I talk about a purge? I think it's critical. Obama holdovers in any department, State Department, intelligence, they got to go. Secondly, whoever the leakers are in the intelligence community, they're giving all these agencies a bad name. They're giving the profession a bad name. I'm sure it's a small few, probably high up.
I think
how important it is they get indicted.
Look, I think Director Comey of the FBI, there's only a few people that have this information, and only a few people can be leaking it. They ought to run them down, take them out, prosecute them, punish them, and fire them.
Do you have faith in Comey?
You know, everything I heard about the guy or have heard about him is impressive, that he's got real character and dignity and honor. But I don't understand. Why? Look, the guys in these agencies have an obligation to run these. You got people in there who are betraying their oaths, you know, disloyal to the agency,
it's a
damaging
felony.
the commander-in-chief, committing felonies. Why doesn't the FBI investigate that? Look, again, suppose somebody in Trump's campaign got on the phone after a night of drinking and called the Russian ambassador and said, look, drop another bunch of email.
Yeah.
Look, that is not a crime.
Right.
And Clapper says no crimes have been committed, but crimes are being committed
by leaking. Violation of the Espionage Act.
Look, and you got the Fourth Estate collaborators who got First Amendment protection are the ones working with these deep state folks, and they're trying to damage.
So this purge needs to go to where we're talking.
I think
intelligence leakers and Obama
I would go
holdovers.
to the Intelligence Committee of both houses and say, you got to, run down to see if any Trump folks were fooling around with the Russians, fine. But get into all these leaks, find out where they were, and prosecute these guys. Listen, I think I mentioned, I don't know whether it was on your show, but look, Donald Trump, you know what his vote was in D.C.? 4.
I got to roll, Pat.
Look, I could have beat him.
Yeah, in D.C. All right, Pat Buchanan, good to see you. All right, up next on this busy Monday news night here tonight on Hannity.
I doubt that Trump was a target directly of any kind of eavesdropping, but I'm not saying it didn't happen. I think there's a very good chance it does.
Senator Rand Paul saying it is possible that someone from the Obama administration was in fact snooping on the Trump campaign. Sarah Carter, Circa News, she's been ahead of the curve on this, joins us next. Also, President Trump thinks he is beginning to make progress on the GOP Obamacare replacement bill. In a mini monologue tonight, I'll explain why congressional Republicans seemed ill-prepared for the moment as we hold them accountable tonight. And we'll check in with Monica Crowley and Geraldo Rivera straight ahead.
I doubt that Trump was a target directly of any kind of eavesdropping, but I'm not saying it didn't happen. I think there's a very good chance it does. I don't have any special information, but the way it works is the FISA court, through Section 702, wiretaps foreigners and then listens to Americans. It's a backdoor search of Americans, and because they have so much data, they can type Donald Trump into their vast resources of people they're tapping overseas, and they get all of his phone calls.
All right, that was Senator Rand Paul yesterday saying, yeah, it's possible someone from the Obama administration, in fact, could have been spying on the Trump campaign. Here with reaction from circanews.com, Sarah Carter. All right, you and John Solomon have broke this story. I even think I misunderstood a part of it. I want to make sure we correct the record here. Your sources are telling you there were 2 warrants. One was a FISA warrant in the lead up to the campaign that, in fact, did allow surveillance, but it had nothing to do with Donald Trump, that particular warrant.
Absolutely, absolutely, that is correct. There was a FISA warrant taken out in October that was to oversee the whole election issue with Russia that had seen something else, we would have seen some movement, but we haven't seen any movement afoot on any of that, at least to date. According to the very high-level senior sources that we've been speaking with, there is no evidence connecting Trump with Russian hacking.
So my next question is, when the New York Times and the BBC and McClatchy and to some extent the Washington Post and all these news organizations, they use the word wiretap. Okay, the president in the tweet said wiretap, but are we really just parsing words here? If in fact either intelligence or law enforcement were looking at a server for about a 2-week period of time in the lead up to the election, something was going on. And I think people have a right to know that A, they didn't find anything, and B, nothing nefarious on the political side of this happened. In other words, what did the president know? Who helped instigate this is a big question in my mind.
I think that's the main question. Who instigated the original search on the server? Why did the FBI pursue any type of investigation? I think when we can answer that question...
Well, hold that. Who initiated it? Well, Hillary Clinton seems to have known about it.
Correct.
How did she know about it a week before the election? How did Harry Reid seemingly know about it before the election?
Correct. And there was a briefing, apparently. Some of the folks were briefed on this. That is what we believe. That is why Harry Reid came out and was making these big statements like there's going to be big evidence coming out between the Russia and the election hacking and the Trump campaign. And then remember, in December, that's when there were definite, I guess, you don't want to say, but people got access to Flynn's name, right, on the transcripts, right, which was a completely separate.
And now we learned, by the way, over the weekend from the Putin spokesperson that, in fact, Hillary's campaign had discussions with the Russians.
Absolutely. There were people on Hillary's campaign, people on Trump's campaign. This is a normal process.
I want to ask this. Is it possible, from a political perspective, that somebody high profile on the left used their power, influence, or perhaps political alliances to initiate all of this? That is a very deep question, because if that's the case, then we are using potentially intelligence and law enforcement as a means of criminalizing or investigating a political opponent or an opposition party during a presidential election.
I think you bring up a very, very good point, a very solid point. I mean, this is something that continuously needs to be investigated. Mm-hmm. But right now, if you look at the FISA, if you just look at what happened with Flynn, let's just use him as an example. Mm-hmm. His name was leaked by a senior U.S. official, according to David Ignatius, who wrote that column, right? A senior U.S. official leaked a classified name. This is a felony. It's a felony. They unmasked the name of a private conversation of a wiretap of a Russian ambassador to take down, apparently, it looks like it's on its face, to take down or expose a U.S. citizen who was speaking to a Russian ambassador. And that is a serious felony.
That was a felony? Yeah, all right. Next question. Where does your investigation go next? Because we're going to stay on this. Everyone in the media has been wrong. And you have gotten us the information that everybody's wanted corroborated. What's next in the investigation?
We are looking for the person that originally tipped off the FBI. And we are going to continue.
You think you know who it is?
I think I do know who it is.
We'll have you back tomorrow. Sarah Carter.
Thank you.
You have a lot of work to do between now and then.
I think I do.
So good to see you. Thank you.
Nice to see you too,
Sean. I appreciate it. This gets more fascinating. The media should be embarrassed. They owe you, the American people, an apology. Up next tonight, right here on Hannity.
More competition and less regulation will finally bring down the cost of care, and I think it'll bring it down very significantly. Unfortunately, it takes a while to get there because you have to let that marketplace kick in.
President Trump, he's optimistic about the GOP Obamacare replacement plan, but congressional Republicans, they seem so ill-prepared for this moment. That is my mini monologue coming up next. Also, why are Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham constantly trying to undermine, sabotage the president? Monica Crowley, Geraldo Rivera weigh in, and then later tonight. Disturbing new music video, Snoop Dogg showing the rapper pointing a fake gun at a clown dressed up like the president. Left-wing hate continues. What if that was President Obama? What would the reaction be? Straight ahead.
This is a Fox News weather alert. I'm Kelly Wright in Washington. The East Coast is bracing for a massive nor'easter. A blizzard warning is in effect for New York City, northern New Jersey, and southern Connecticut. The storm could dump up to 18 inches of snow in New York City and Boston. Philadelphia is slated to get up to a foot of snow, while Washington, D.C. could see up to 10 inches. Wind gusts of up to 55 miles per hour are also possible. More than 5,000 flights are already canceled, and most schools have already announced they'll be closed Tuesday. The storm also forcing German Chancellor Angela Merkel to postpone her trip to Washington, D.C. She was scheduled to meet with President Trump tomorrow. President Trump says he's spoken to Chancellor Merkel, and the trip has been rescheduled for Friday. That's a look at news. I'm Kelly Wright. Now, back to Hannity.
Welcome back to Hannity. So President Trump believes that he's beginning to make some progress on one of his key campaign promises to repeal and replace Obamacare. But congressional Republicans, well, they have done him, in my view, a disservice. And that's tonight's mini monologue. All right, so today the president met with victims of Obamacare. He heard their stories and how the disastrous health care law is failing so many of us. Watch this.
My entire administration and a lot of people in the Senate and a lot of people in the House are committed to repealing and replacing this disastrous law with a health care plan that lowers cost, expands choice, and ensures access for everyone. More competition and less regulation will finally bring down the cost of care, and I think it'll bring it down very significantly. Unfortunately, it takes a while to get there, because you have to let that marketplace kick in. And it's going to take a little while to get there. Once it does, it's going to be a thing of beauty. I wish it didn't take a year and 2 years, but that's what's going to happen, and that's the way it works. But we're willing to go through that process.
Also today, the president tweeted, quote, Obamacare is imploding. It is a disaster, and 2017 will be the worst year yet by far. Republicans will come together. They'll save the day. President Trump, he's pushing ahead, and he's trying to get Republican lawmakers to now come together and make a deal that works for you, the American people. A number of groups have voiced concerns with the GOP Obamacare overhaul. Now you can see them on the side of your screen. Here's my problem with the Republican legislation. They've had 8 years. All the opposition to the GOP Obamacare replacement plan, they knew ahead of time. It's my opinion the president has not really been well served by the Republican Party in the House or the Senate. And this public civil war that's going on, well, makes the GOP Congress, after having 8 years to get their act together, look like they were ill-prepared for this big moment. So what do we do now moving forward? You can't undo the past. Well, by doing what they should have done, in my opinion, in the beginning. That means Republicans in the House and the Senate. That means members of the Freedom Caucus, Senator Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and Rand Paul, along with Paul Ryan, Secretary Price, Vice President Pence. They need to get in a room behind closed doors, hammer out a consensus bill, and personally, I would like to see the plan include health care savings accounts and health care cooperatives. Joining us now with reaction is a doctor who all members of Congress, in my opinion, need to get to know. He's the founder of Atlas MD, a healthcare cooperative in Wichita, Kansas, that is insurance-free. Dr. Josh Umber is back with us. Has anyone called you of importance yet? I keep putting you on radio and TV.
Oh, no, not yet, unfortunately. But social media has been ablaze with it.
I get people fired. I got 46 people fired last week, so I thought I might have some influence. Here's what I want to ask you. The president said today that there are going to be free market solutions that haven't even been thought of yet. Healthcare savings accounts is a big part of it, but so are cooperatives like you have. So let me go real quick. The average adult patient in your practice pays $50 a month. The average child pays $10 a month. That includes unlimited care. What does that include?
Unlimited home visits, work visits, office visits, unlimited technology visits. We have no copays for anything in the office. Any procedure we do in the office is free of charge because it costs us pennies or dollars to do. And then wholesale medications, labs, imaging, pathology at anywhere from 80 to 95% discount. So the president was absolutely right. More competition, less regulation, and let the free market take over. But where he was missing the point, and again, you have your pulse, your thumb on the pulse of this topic better than anyone else, is this won't take years. This is already in place and active and live and just really waiting for the GOP and the administration to let it run wild.
And so
Yes,
X-rays are pennies on the dollar, and MRIs pennies on the dollar. A broken leg, stitches, antibiotics, whatever you need. Even cancer drugs you dispense at 90% off, right?
Whenever we can, we use the free market to get the best possible value for our patients, which often means huge discounts. And we know that there's a lot of bloat and waste in the healthcare system, but we're still always surprised to find out that the actual cost of health care can be so much less.
And you duplicated this. You were able to help others. There's about anywhere between 500 and 1,000 practices like yours that have now popped up around the country. And so it's something we can duplicate. And if somebody has that plan and they have catastrophic insurance for, God forbid, an accident, a heart attack, or cancer, that's inexpensive, especially with a high deductible. And the average person is saving what compared to what they're paying now? And then I got to run.
We're seeing families save between 30 and 60% on their health insurance, especially when we're working with small businesses. So if we decrease the cost of health insurance and the cost of health care, we would have a 1-2 punch that this country has not seen in a long time.
Well, you know what? That's sort of the innovative ideas I think the president was talking about today. All right, Dr. Umber, I know I've taken a lot of your time. Thank you. And up next, why are these two Republicans right there, those two, Lindsey Graham, John McCain, why are they constantly undermining, sabotaging the president? We'll ask Monica Crowley, Geraldo Rivera, and then later tonight. Rapper Snoop Dogg hits a new low, pointing a fake gun at a clown dressed as President Trump. It's all in his new music video. Niger Innis, Anthony Scaramucci joined the debate, coming up straight ahead.
Unfortunately, not all of our cabinet members could join us. We have 4 empty seats, which is a terrible thing, because the Senate Democrats are continuing to obstruct the confirmation of our nominees for the Department of Labor, the Department of Agriculture, the Director of National Intelligence, and the United States Trade Representative.
All right, that was President Trump earlier today, meeting for the first time with his cabinet. Now it's still short, 4 members, because of Democratic obstructionists in the Senate. But those on the left are not alone in their efforts to derail the president and his agenda. 2 Republican senators, John McCain, Lindsey Graham, constantly attacking the Republican president, colluding with the alt-left propaganda media and the liberal snowflakes. Now, don't forget, Senator Graham, he made a promise. He broke that RNC pledge. He didn't support Donald Trump in the general election like he said he would. And listen to John McCain. He's on TV every other night criticizing the president.
President Trump has to provide the American people, not just the Intelligence Committee, but the American people with evidence that his predecessor, former President of the United States, was guilty of breaking the law, because our Director of National Intelligence, General Clapper, testified that there was absolutely no truth to that allegation. So I think the president has one of 2 choices: either retract or to provide the information that the American people deserve.
Here with reaction conservative commentator Monica Crowley, Fox News senior correspondent Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo, I'll start with you. Look, everybody has free speech. We make our living with free speech. Here is the first time Republicans have a chance to do really, really big things. And it's like a never-ending attack by these 2 guys. They seem bitter for whatever reason. Lindsey Graham, we know, is bitter because he couldn't even get, what, 2% in his home state of South Carolina.
You know, full disclosure, these 2 fellows, however much of a pain in the neck to the president they are, they represent my wing of the Republican Party. You might call it the Rhino wing. I call it the moderate Republican, the traditional Rockefeller Republican wing. And they are really seduced, I think, by the liberal media, in the sense that the more they oppose the president, the more they have access to MSNBC and CNN and the other news outlets who want very much to criticize the president. So they put on McCain and Graham, but when the rubber hits the road, you mentioned the cabinet and the empty seats. Look at the Rex Tillerson nomination to be Secretary of State. They both opposed it initially, and then both voted for it.
Here's what I want to ask you,
I think
though.
substantively it's not a big deal.
All right, you and I, we've had passionate debates, and you have become like a brother to me. You're one of my closest friends. I love Geraldo Rivera. We're buddies. If you have a problem with with me, wouldn't you come to me? If something you were doing was bothering me as a friend, I'd go, hey, Geraldo, what are you doing? Why don't they go to the press? Why do they have to race to CNN every 5 seconds with every minor critique? And you know what? I lost respect for Lindsey Graham for not keeping his word.
I think you really laid it out, and I think the problem is that there's not enough of a personal relationship between these gentlemen and the President of the United States. You talk about our friendship, our deep and abiding friendship. I would never go behind your back on a substantive issue because face to face we are blood brothers. This is not the relationship that the President of the United States has. I think that the more he isolates himself behind his closed circle, the less he's going to be able to work with these people.
He's invited everybody in. Let me throw this to Monica, bring her into this. Monica, he's inviting everybody in. Now that they laid out a health care bill and they rolled it out too soon and they didn't have consensus, now it's his mess. He's got to clean up their mess.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, to Geraldo's point, I wish it were that easy, where the president could invite Senators McCain and Graham in and all would be well. But we know with their track record that that's likely not to be the case. I have enormous respect for these senators, but they have made careers of being contrarian. They're notorious for breaking ranks with conservatives, aligning with moderates, and even Democrats to support certain positions. So we know that they are no fans of this president, and they are going to take every opportunity that they can to criticize his agenda and to criticize him. That is not going to change despite any kind of charm offensive. The problem, Sean, is that the Democrats never break ranks ever. The Republicans do every 5 minutes.
I'm not saying that they should hold back. One thing that they're saying, work with the president and look, this country is in a precipitous decline. We have a chance to fix it. They can be part of the solution, and it seems it's so self-serving on their part.
They could, Sean, but you know, they are so interested in courting the other side and wanting good coverage from the New York Times and the Washington Post, which when both men ran for president, they did not get. So they get no credit for standing on principle, and yet they get used by the other side.
Let me give you an example. If Geraldo and I had really big issues that we had to deal with in front of us, we would sit down, and I am certain, 100% certain, we'd hammer it out, and we'd come up with the best idea. Nobody's going to get everything they want in this bill, but if you sit down and talk instead of, racing to CNN, really? Both of them. What are they doing? Geraldo?
Well, I think a big test will be now the Congressional Budget Office has given us this a kind of stark news. Yes, you're going to save an awful lot of money in the federal deficit on the one hand, but you're going to lose a lot of people being insured on the other hand. I would love to see what happens now. Where will Graham, where will McCain go? Will they try to finesse it, particularly with the issue of Medicaid expansion? How are they going to be on both sides of the road? I think that will really be a test of whether they are truly patriotic GOP members or if they really are just outliers.
You know what? Me and Geraldo, we could fix this, bring the two sides together, and then we'll fix the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
And I'll help, Sean. I'll help.
Okay.
There you go. What a party.
We'll bring Bo along just for entertainment. All right. When we come back tonight, right here on Hannity. Snoop Dogg pulling a fake gun on a clown dressed as President Trump for his new music video. Really? Nigel Innes, Anthony Scaramucci weigh in on that disgusting display. And what if it was Barack Obama? All right, welcome back to Hannity. The rapper Snoop Dogg has hit a new low, which means a lot. Take a look at this video. Now, according to Billboard magazine, Snoop Dogg explained he did this because, quote, well, I feel like it's a lot of people making cool records, having fun, partying, but nobody's dealing with the real issue of this blanking clown as president and, well, the blank that we're dealing with out there. So I wanted to take out time and push pause on a party record and make one of these recordings for the time being. Okay, joining us with a reaction, the leader and activist of the Congress of Racial Equality, Niger Innis, and Trump Transition Team executive, a member and the founder of Skybridge Capital, Anthony Scaramucci. You know, Niger, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's obvious what would happen if it was about President Obama. We know what the criticism would be. I bet you nobody else covers this story tonight but us. That's a big part of it, isn't it?
Oh, no question. And look, the debasement of a president of the United States, be it President Obama or President Trump, is not a good thing. And I have to say that I'm very, very disappointed in Snoop Dogg. Snoop has come a long way from the old days. You know, just last summer, you know, by the way, you mentioned in this video, there's also debasement not of just President Trump, but of also the police, you know, having a policeman shoot an innocent bystander. Which is unfortunate because this is the same Snoop Dogg that was very hopeful last summer when he held a very positive pro-police community relations, a pro-peace, a pro-love for a peaceful relationship with the police and the community. And that Snoop Dogg is the responsible Snoop Dogg. I think this Snoop Dogg is unfortunately going to the lowest common denominator and the easy path.
Why do I think Anthony Scaramucci, if it was a conservative saying it about Obama, that we would probably hear people saying, well, that's a threat? Or Madonna saying what she said about, you know, thinking about blowing up the White House.
There'd be 10 media networks. They would be blasted everywhere, both in print and television. But, Sean, we all know that the intolerance actually comes from the left. At the end of the day, the First Amendment is okay for them as long as you're saying what they're saying. If you're not saying what they're saying, then you get protested, you get kicked off a campus, or you get, you know, in the situation with Snoop Dogg, he's probably trying to curry favor somewhere in Hollywood or the music industry, and there seems to be an open portal, an open license, Sean, to allow this sort of unsavory behavior to happen. But over time, I do believe that the mainstream people in the United States will start boycotting people like this, and then, of course, their behavior will change.
I just think, you know, it's just sad because this is where the narrative is. I personally do not believe, as incendiary as all of these snowflakes are, or the stupid video, I'm not a believer, Niger, that it creates the atmosphere, that it creates somebody that's insane. Do you believe that? Do you think that the atmosphere contributes to the mind of a lunatic? Because that's what they always say about conservatives when somebody acts nuts and claims they're a conservative.
Oh, I think it certainly can add to the atmosphere. I mean, the left, the far left, is already protesting and not exercising their First Amendment right of freedom of speech, but actually inciting violence, acting with violence, you know, destroying property, intimidating individuals. But I think Anthony hit the nail on the head. I think Snoop Dogg, who has come a long way into the mainstream, was trying to curry favor with many within the Hollywood elite, and it's unfortunate they suffer from Trump derangement syndrome out there.
Anthony, what do you think? Who gets the blame if, God forbid, anything happens? Do you believe the atmosphere created, or do you hold the person that does something horrible responsible?
Well, I think, look, as we both know, Sean, it's a combination of both. But this certainly should not be tolerated. And so in a free market system, free market society, which you and I and all of us here believe in, we have to just move with our feet and stop listening to these people, turn the TV off. I have not watched the Oscars in 4 years, Sean. My bet is my bet is you're into a decade now of not watching the Oscars.
Yeah, well, I only
low ratings too.
Yeah, low ratings, no ratings, low ratings, and you know what? They're so formulaic. Oh, let's see, sex, violence, and a cartoon movie. What a shock.
How about all the guns in the movies, and then they're out there protesting for gun control?
I actually like gun movies. I like westerns. I still, but you know, I think there's another market out there, which is why I'm in a movie project right now that I'm the executive producer of. All right, guys, love you both. You're dead on target, as usual. When we come back, we need your help. An important question of the day. It's about Lindsey Graham and John McCain and the messages you left on the Hannity Hotline.
A Tucker Carlson Tonight exclusive.
We're going to take action. There's going to be no slowing down.
President Trump talks a repeal and replace strategy. Plus, he takes us inside his agenda moving forward. It's a must-see one-on-one.
All right, so we told you how Senator Graham and Senator McCain are attacking the president, and that leads to tonight's question of the day. Of the two, who do you think would be more likely to jump to the Democratic Party first, McCain or Graham? Go to Facebook.com/Sean Hannity, @Sean Hannity on Twitter. Let us know what you think. All right, we always let you hit me with the best shot. You get the last word, and these are the messages you left on the Hannity Hotline.
I don't know who did your makeup today, man, but you look like a tomato.
Hannity, I love your program, but do me a favor. When you ask the question, make them short and sweet, and don't preach to the choir. Thank you again. Keep up the good work.
All right, I have something you want to say? Nice, be as mean as you want. I can handle whatever you got. Call us. The number's on your screen, 877-225-8587. But that's all the time we have left. Thanks for being with us. See you back here tomorrow night.